Welcome to Beyond the Bottom Line, the podcast where founders and business owners get in-depth insights and actionable takeaways from industry experts. We're here to help maximize your revenue, streamline your operations, and keep more of your hard-earned money. Now here's your host, Miguel Alexander Centeno.
Thanks for joining. I'm Miguel, founder and CEO of Centurion Firm, where I have the honor of leading a small tax strategy team serving businesses just like yours. And the cool thing about what I do is I get to work with business owners who are doing much cooler things. I do a deep dive with clients, mentors, and businesses I admire about their world, how they think about their topic, and how you as a business owner, operator, or investor can learn from the best. Let's dive into this episode with Erica Dike over at Erica O Designs about how she thinks about building and operating short-term rentals. Please tell us a little bit about you, Erica, and thanks for being on.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Dike. I am the principal designer here at Erica O Designs. I specialize in vacation rental design, specifically for very busy professionals. I don't have a interior design background, so I actually have a degree in MIS, which is Management Information Systems, and I was a business analyst at NASA, where I started co-hosting short-term rentals, and then once I developed my designing for dollars formula, which I'm going to share with you in a minute, I left, and I have been designing vacation rentals ever since. I am currently working on my 77th vacation rental, so I'm really excited to share all that I've learned in the process so that you don't have to make the mistakes that I did in the beginning and you can just hit the ground running when it comes to making money.
I love that. Anytime we've got these stories of having a 9-to-5 and then taking the leap and doing your own thing, your own way. I'd love to hear, do you come from a family of entrepreneurs? Did you have a lemonade stand as a kid? How did you get inspired to say, hey, I want to do my own thing?
I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. I think a friend of mine, she was like, oh, you've always been so self-aware. I think I just always knew that what I like. And so when I was working at NASA straight out of college, I was with a lot of older people who were like, oh, I met my spouse here. And I'm like, wow, you've been here for so long. And I don't know. I just didn't really want to be that. Mm-hmm. I really leaned into my design side because it's just something that I've always loved to do, something I've been really good at. And when I started designing one property and, they were referring me and it was making money, I was just like, you know what? I don't want to do this like part-time because I feel like I'm better serving here than just being behind a desk. And so I took that leap of faith and I kid you not, I probably didn't get like family support in doing that until like maybe recently, maybe 2-3 years ago. So I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs, but I do think that I have paved the way for others in my family who are thinking about how better can I serve than just, getting a 9 to.
Do you get a lot of skepticism and where are they now on the journey?
Yeah, for sure. So if you don't know, I am Nigerian and in my culture, it's really, I don't know the word, emphasize or that you should be like a lawyer or a doctor or engineer.
Or an accountant?
It's funny, my mom is actually an accountant. So like, when I got the job at NASA, they were like, oh, yes, great. Then when I said I wanted to leave, they're like, no, I don't think you should do that. But I think they all have seen my design side, as a kid, they would always be like, it's not a fashion show. And I'm like, I know it's not a fashion show, but I just want to wear this. So like, it wasn't far-fetched that I wanted to do design. They just weren't sure how successful I would be at it. So, now I'm 5 years in and they're like, oh, there are people who really care for design and it's not just something you do for fun. So I think they respect and admire that I took the courage to do it. And they're pretty supportive now for the most part.
That's beautiful. So you worked at a small startup called NASA where, you weren't going to get any security and you took a big leap. I think a lot of clients will empathize with that. I think our client profile, a lot of the times are folks that do have a 9-to-5 and are building a portfolio of Airbnbs on the side. In this audience, you have a good mix of people that did corporate servitude and kind of built a entrepreneurial business to complement that. And oftentimes, you probably know, in order to qualify for a loan to get a vacation rental, you've got to have good corporate income, or you've had to be an entrepreneur for at least 2 strong years. So a quick deviation into qualifying for a loan for vacation rental. Bank's going to want to see an average of 2 years where you've done really well. So oftentimes, quick PSA, you get your tax return, you're like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to write everything off. You've been watching tax TikTok. You're going to write off your wedding. You're going to write off your, kid's school. Like, all of a sudden, you've got zero income and the bank doesn't want to look at you. So our clients know that, but just one way to weave in the journey of ups and downs. So it sounds like 5 years in, you know this stuff, you've dealt with it. Tell us a little bit about kind of what you wanted to do before college. What did you study? You told me MIS, so you want to do business, but like, where did you see yourself when you were thinking about, hey, I'm in my teens, what am I going to do in my 20s? Like, how did you think about your career then? And then we'll move into the now.
So I came to America when I was 3 years old. So before that, we lived in Nigeria. And in Nigeria, my mom was a lawyer, and then she became a judge. So when we got to America, and of course, I'm growing up and whatnot, I got this bright idea, like, okay, I'm going to double major and be an accounting major and pre-law so that I can eventually start a business. I always knew I was going to start a business, but what type of business that would be changed over the years. But at this time, I was at Baylor, and double majoring at Baylor is not the easiest thing. So I kind of just had to pick something. I was still a double major, but then we had a presentation from someone who was talking, because I was in the MIS class as an elective, and they were talking about their degree, MIS, and I never heard of that degree before. But I felt like that was a good base, being able to manage information, being able to create systems to pretty much get anything you want done. That's something that now I really value as an interior designer, because there is the creative side of the business, but there's a lot of systems you really need to put in place so that you can work with other people, because they're coming to you as a specialist, and it's not knowledge that they understand or they get. But if you can create systems where they're able to, follow you throughout the process while you're still holding their hand, but while you still have the full creative freedom, that's really important to know. So I was a pre-law accounting major, and then I completely switched over to MIS. And when I graduated, I applied for an internship, but I guess I did that internship at NASA really well. And so they extended it to be a contract where I was there for a year. But the whole time I was there, I was like, this is not where I want to be. But I am going to take in a lot of information. That was when I got switched into the BA role, where I supported the project manager. And so it allowed me to look at things really differently, like seeing a project and knowing the different, benchmarks that you need to hit, knowing the different elements that come into play in a successful project. I use that now in my day-to-day. So without going into my process too detailed, because I want to say that for later, as a designer, when I design, I do it a little differently. I look at it from a business standpoint. And so that's why I feel like I'm really able to work with investors better, because I get the numbers, I get, why they're in business. Like you said, a lot of people are in 9 to 5. So when they come to me, I'm not thinking about making it, so pretty. I'm thinking about making it profitable, because you get into this because you're hoping to scale your portfolio. You're hoping to retire early. You're hoping to do so many things that this property is the vehicle for. So it's really important to me that when I'm putting and choosing elements in your space, the ROI is there, because we don't just care for it to be pretty. We care for it to be profitable. And so that's how MIS and me are here now.
No, I think that's great. And I think I love the trajectory from business into creative. You typically see, especially with our clients, you see it go the other way around, where you've got creative people who know the business, maybe know what a Airbnb should look like, but they've got to figure out the numbers and the accounting side. So a little bit of a, match made in Haven, huh? Getting both of that. Our family came from Mexico. My family did. And my dad was a lawyer in Mexico. My mom was a doctor, a dentist, and then came here. And then my mom, basically downgrade your career.
Yeah.
When you switch. So I empathize with that. My mom became a dental assistant. My dad became a paralegal. And actually, I don't know if I've shared this before, but just on this, you never know where your trajectory is going. My dad did taxes because he was the paralegal tax guy for, I'm going to call it the value marts across LA. So my first career in tax was actually handing out my dad's business cards, putting them in parking lots at these Mexican value marts across LA. So I kind of came in where I was like, I don't want anything to do starting my own business. And that's why my first internship out of college was at Morgan Stanley. And then I went to PricewaterhouseCoopers. And then, kind of similar to you after that, I was like, okay, I don't want to be a cog in the wheel. So here we are. That's how we both got here.
Small world. I feel like people have more similarities than they have differences, but we just never know until we talk. So that's interesting.
Exactly. And that's why we do this. Now let's hear about what you do, Erica. Yeah, take it away.
So like I mentioned briefly before, I have what I call a designing for dollars formula. Because when you are designing your vacation rental or a vacation rental, if you are planning to be a designer like I am, it's very important to know that investors are coming to you because you want to make money. So you have to be designing for dollars no matter what. I know there's some designers like, oh, I can't really guarantee, this design is going to make this much money. But I mean, if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be doing this because it's very, very important. Because when we are picking the properties, we have pro formas, we have numbers. That's what makes it a good deal. But your design is what's going to make that good deal a reality for you, as opposed to every day hoping you get bookings, every day hoping you hit those numbers. This is where it begins. So the first part of my data-driven design formula is, where do you start? The very, very most important thing is your ideal guest. The mistake that most people make is they're thinking they need to design a property that everyone will like, because you don't know who's booking, right? So you want it to be generally liked. You want it to be, oh, I like this. But your ideal guests, they're all going to be different people, but they're coming for one specific experience. And that is how you're going to attract them. So think of it like when you are buying a gift for someone. If you don't know the person, you probably won't know what type of gift to get. You'll guess, I hope they like this gift. But if it's your brother or your cousin or your best friend, you know exactly who they are, you know what they like, and you know how to pick out the perfect guest that's going to win them over, So that's what it kind of is.
So when we're thinking about that ideal guest, what are you looking for specifically?
You look at your location. Where are you located? Why do people visit the area? Sometimes people are trying to attract travel nurses. Now, that is your ideal guest, travel nurses. Because you know your ideal guest, you're able to know, am I in a good location? Am I in proximity to a hospital where they would work? Am I in an area where, even though I'm not that close, I do have public transportation that they can use? Just knowing your ideal guest is where you want to start. Don't start off on Pinterest, creating boards and looking at, oh, this is cute, this is cute. Well, that comes later. The first thing you want to do is really get to know your ideal guest. Make a list of why they're coming, what they're doing when they come here, what they enjoy doing in the space. Look at your competition. Before you design a vacation rental, you don't necessarily have a competition because you're not competing yet. So think of this as research. Look at in the area, other properties, read their reviews. What are guests saying? What did guests enjoy about the property? What did guests wish they had at the property? Look at why they came. They always almost tell you why they're visiting. They'll say, oh, we were here for a birthday party. We were here for a retreat. I've had bachelorette parties, bachelor parties. Just knowing why they come, you can kind of get an idea okay, most people come to this area for this. So once I know my ideal guest, I'm ready to move on to the next phase of the design process, which is designing for value. Designing for value for your ideal guest is going to answer that big question of where to save and where to splurge in your budget. So that's like another big thing, because you have this set amount of funds that you want to use to design this property and you don't know what to do. Like, do you get the trendy sofa that you see that's like $5,000, or can you get away with just a basic sofa that's like $1,000? That's going to be based on your ideal guest. So knowing that guest before you move into offering value it's kind of helpful. This is where your nightly rate comes into play, because again, we have these numbers that we purchased this property for. So like these numbers are really important.
Now let's zoom out a little bit to really think about what Erica is saying here. What she's talking about is an ICP. An ICP, or ideal customer profile, is a very common and very important concept for small businesses. We all know you find your ideal customer and you identify the product or service that they're going to be happiest with, and therefore willing to pay the highest price again and again for. What's different about the ICP, the IGP, if you will, ideal guest profile, when it comes to short-term rentals, is that you have two existing constraints that define who your ICP can or cannot be. Number one is location. Depending on where your property is, it's going to define who is going to be a good fit. For example, if you're by a hospital, you're going to have a lot of medical workers. If you're by, say, Lady Bird Lake here in Austin, you're going to get a lot of people who want to enjoy the weekend. Bachelor parties, bachelorette parties. So location is going to narrow down who your ideal customer or ideal guest can be. The second constraint is your property type and size. Depending on whether you have an apartment in a condo or a 6-bedroom mansion, you're going to get different people attracted to different things. Most obviously, if you have a studio, you can get a lot of business travelers. And if you have starting at 3 beds, you'll start to get couples who travel together, as well as groups going for events or concerts. So given those constraints, you don't have full flexibility over who your guest profile can be. You have a more limited array of ideal guests, meaning if you're not by hospital, you're not going to attract very many nurses. So you want to work with your constraints to help you design who your guest is. So what Erica is saying is that once you work with your two constraints, you can then narrow down on who your ideal guest is. And that's where you start the design process. Once you know who that person is, down to where they live, where they're coming from, what kind of experience they're there for, that's what you design around. Could you share a little more about the nightly rate? It's obviously super important to figure out. So how do you think about nightly rate?
So your nightly rate, which is what you said you had to make per night for this deal to work, is where your value is going to come from. So let's say you're over $500 a night, then you know that you're probably looking at luxury clients. These are people who are willing to spend $500 a night. So when you know your ideal guest, let's say luxury families, you know that they probably will value a lot of seating spaces in the living room. So you know that you can splurge on comfortable seating and ample amount of seating. Another area you can consider is like, do I splurge on a game room or do I splurge on a home gym? It goes back down to your ideal guest. If you are trying to target those luxury families, then you know that if they're traveling up to the mountains where they'll stay at the property, they're going to value a game room more than a home gym. If you could do both, they're definitely going to value both. But a game room would be more valued than the home gym. So you know that you're going to splurge there because your ideal guest is willing to pay premium for what they value. And so that's how you get your nightly rate. It's not necessarily filling your property in with a bunch of fancy, expensive pieces, but it's filling it with pieces that your ideal guest will value so that when they are looking for a certain experience, which is what they do when they're browsing listings, They're looking for an experience, not a place to sleep. So when they're looking for that experience, because you've thought about them in your design and you're offering them value, meaning when you pay this rate, you're going to get everything that you want, need, and appreciate in this property. You get your nightly rate and your guests get what they value, and it's win-win for everybody.
So it sounds like what you're saying is when you're very clear about your ideal guest profile, it helps you make investment decisions. It clarifies where to spend money on the property.
I always say, when in doubt, think about your ideal guest. If you're in the furniture store and you see a bunch of sofas, you don't know if you should get a leather one or a velvet one or a green one or a blue one, just stop and think about the friend you're buying the gift for. I'm buying this gift for travel nurses. They would probably value a sofa that has a chase connected to it, or a sofa with an ottoman, because after a long day at work, they want to come home and recline and get off their feet. So that's going to help you know where to spend money and where to save money. A good example of where to save, let's say you see a really nice coffee table. That's not going to really attract or detract anybody. So you can save on the coffee table and spend most money on your game room. Just knowing that, keeping that ideal guest in mind is going to help you with those design decisions, because you're going to make a lot of decisions, from the size to the material, to the layout, to how you plan your space so that guests can watch TV comfortably, or they can maneuver with their suitcases comfortably. You're going to make a lot of design decisions. So knowing your ideal guest will help you know where to save and where to splurge and how to offer value in your design.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of important points there that I just want to double down on. And that's it's not about what you prefer, what you like to see in a space. It's about kind of their journey. So one thing we learned, Ash and I, who works with me, have a place in Rosarito, a beach place. And what we learned is people don't spend any time at the Airbnb. So
yeah,
why would we get the most comfortable couch? In fact, we just changed it to be a couch that just has a pull-out. So now we can get another couple in there. And then we found out it's not families. I've gone with my family, but it's typically couples. It's pairs of couples that are going. So it's you got to make sure there's shot glasses. You got to make sure the fridge, has ice in it. But outside of that, you don't need to, we didn't need to have a bunch of dishes and coffee stuff. They're all just getting up, getting out, and then coming back at night and going to sleep.
Exactly. I also have an ideal guest guide if anyone wants to connect with me later. And it pretty much outlines 6 types of guests. So the general 6 types of guests you're going to get are couples, business travelers, solo travelers, travel nurses, families in large groups, and people traveling for special occasions. So in that guide, I've outlined the must-haves for each person. Yeah. So like you said, couples, they don't really need a bunch of dishes and stuff. But what they do need is areas where they can have romantic dinners. So if you have, you're along the beach, I don't know if you have an outdoor space, then you would probably get a lot of value if you offer a bistro seating table outside where they can enjoy. It doesn't have to be home cooked, because they probably won't cook at home, but they'll order in and enjoy the beach. And that could be something that you upsell, if you have a private chef that you want to lean into. When you're offering value, it makes it so much easier to upsell and make more money, because now you've honed in on this particular experience that your property provides, and you can just elevate that over and over and over, instead of guessing should I get an accent wall or should I get a dartboard? You'll know if you know your ideal guest.
How does someone listening, how do they get that guide?
They can reach out to me on Instagram, email. In my Instagram bio, you'll see the link there, or you can send me an email and I'll share that with you. But that guide is
all right. So if you want that, stay put, because you're going to get the handle and the email.
And lastly, the biggest issue that people see is how to stand out. Especially if you've had your property for a while, this may be something you're struggling with. You're realizing oh, now I can't compete with everything that's going on. I have to revamp the whole design. You don't necessarily have to do that if you design it once correctly and you make the right changes.
So to help with standing out, which seems to feel even harder as more and more properties end up popping up on Airbnb. How do you think about that? You have something called timeless design.
So timeless design pretty much just means you aren't honing in on a specific style. So almost like eclectic, but it's just a nice layer of different pieces. That means when you pick like your sofa and your rug, instead of thinking like, oh, I'm trying to do coastal or I'm trying to do beachy, just think of your ideal guest and be like, will they like this sofa? If they will, then you can pick a pink sofa or a green sofa. Like there are no rules. The more unique your design is, the more it's going to stop the scroll when people are looking. So in a lot of mountain properties that I design, you're not going to see that usual motif that you see in other mountain homes, the plaid. You're not going to see that because I'm thinking of all the other listings that my clients' guests will see, and I want their property to pop. I don't want it to blend in. So when you mix layers and you're unique with your design, you're guaranteed to stand out. And you don't have to think about making constant changes to it to keep up, because it's always going to look good. And it's just going to stand the test of time. That's literally what timeless design is about. And when you don't hone in on a specific style, that it removes the date. So when you aren't trendy, a lot of people love the boxwood walls, like the green boxwood walls with the neon sign. That was a huge trend. I've never done it that way specifically. I wish I could share a picture, but there's a way I did it so that it lets you know, like, oh, I know what's going on, but I'm also not trendy. So 10 years from now, the way I used it is still going to look good. It's still going to stand out. And my client doesn't have to think about making constant changes to keep up. They're always going to be at the forefront. And if you don't really have an eye for design and you're like, where do I start with timeless design? Just look at your property and look at the unique features. So if it has a quirky layout or it has a random corner that, you don't know what to do with, create something, like turn it into a reading nook or work from home space. Like play with the features that are unique to your property so that no matter what, your property is the only one that's going to have that. It's the only one that's going to look for that. And if your ideal guest resonates with that design, then they'll be happy to book, even if you never go back and make changes to it. So if you can, I know timeless design is kind of hard to explain, especially if like design is not your thing, but it's mine. So if you need any help, you can reach out with me to me for that. But do your best to just highlight the property.
I think your background and passion for design is very clear and super important, especially for someone that wants the timeless design advantage. It's a great concept and super important to remember. And speaking about things that are easy to remember, we talk about the importance of the guest experience and how to provide that. And you've developed a formula or an acronym to help people create those unique experiences. Will you tell us a little bit about that? Tell us about your secret sauce.
So the first thing you want to do in your property when you are creating your unique experience is to add personal touches to the space. So it can be as simple as just having a welcome sign. It could be on your TV. It could be something your cleaners put on a whiteboard on your fridge, just saying welcome, letting them know like, hey, I am your host and I'm thinking about you and I want you to feel special, feel at home. I'm not just looking at you like a booking. I'm looking at you like a person. So what that will do is help you, prevent those bad reviews. They'll feel comfortable reaching out to you if they do see something as soon as they get there, because they know that if you thought about something as little as putting my name on the space, you obviously care about, the property, and anything that you overlooked, it was on accident. It's not because you don't care. And I'm not going to complain about how much I paid for your property because it was just a mistake. So it's like a friend, if a friend comes over, like, oh, you probably just forgot to do that. They'll pardon you for it. So just including personal touch is a great way to create a unique experience. And if you can display that in your photos, like taking a picture of a welcome basket or something, that will convey that before the guest book. R stands for routines. So when you're designing your property, you want to think of ways to help your ideal guests stick to their everyday routine while they're away from home. If your ideal guest is like people who work out a lot, then you can provide them with a home gym so that they know, like, oh, this property is a little more expensive, but at least I'll be able to continue my workouts when I book at this property. Versus if I book this one that's cheaper in my budget, I won't be able to work out. So sticking to everyday routines, putting good lighting in the bathroom. Maybe people have extensive skincare. Small things like that will set your property out because they're like, oh, this place has good lighting in the bathroom. I can still do my makeup. I can still do my skincare.
I've never thought of that.
If they're a content creator, I can, still create that content, just sticking to their everyday routine. A good quick tip that I like to give everybody, include an air fryer in your property, because everyone uses that at home. And if they're traveling, they don't have to think about, if they normally just throw in dinner, they know that when I book this property, I can do the same thing. I don't have to think about a restaurant or think about cooking. I could just do what I always do at home. So if you don't have an air fryer already, trust me, put that bad boy on your counter, take a picture of your kitchen. That's going to get you some more bookings for sure. O stands for offers. Offer amenities that guests won't find elsewhere. Brings me back to, highlighting your unique property. If you are by the water, then offer maybe kayaking. Of course, have them sign waivers and stuff like that.
Offering waivers? That sounds like a lot. But what Erica's really saying is you want to think about the kind of experience that your ideal guest is going to have. What are they after? Are they there for a concert? Are they there just to hang out and relax with friends? There are a few points here that I want to highlight that are really important. Number one is to think about the routine. Are you in a very active area with a lot of outdoor activities? If so, think about how you can complement those. Beach chairs or boogie boards or, like Erica said, kayaks. 2, the daily routines. I didn't think about putting up a vanity, but she's right. Every time I go somewhere with my wife, right before dinner, right before a big event, she spends, I don't know how long, getting herself ready in front of the vanity mirror. If there isn't one, she'll find one. But putting one there makes for a convenience factor that many guests will appreciate and remember. Let's continue listening to Erica on what else it takes to create an amazing experience.
Think of unique things you can offer. An easy way, if you're not super creative, just reach out to local artists and ask them, hey, do you mind displaying your artwork in my property? I'll have a QR code for you and guests can purchase it from me or purchase it from you if they like it or something like that. Just find ways to tie in the local community to your property if you don't know how to highlight your property. Everyone knows about FOMO, fear of missing out. Design something that's irresistible that guests can't wait to book immediately, or maybe they'll add it to their wish list and be like, oh, I can't afford it right now, but I definitely want to go there, because that will also boost it on the algorithm. So just think of, again, super unique things that no one else has. If you don't have any ideas, look at your competition, look at what they have, and think about what you can add. Something I did to a redesign just now, it was in the Smokies. Everyone has a deck, everyone has a view, but everyone did not have a telescope that you could see the view and share on social media. Tag the cabin and say it's a great stay. Free marketing and something that, who has a telescope? Do you have a telescope? Do you have a telescope?
No.
Okay. But I'm sure you wouldn't mind booking a few extra dollars so that you can see that view. And that was a view that everybody had. So.
And I think you got to highlight it, because I was just thinking as you're talking about like offering amenities or things that stand out. Like I stayed at an Airbnb with my family in Hawaii, and I have 3 kids, and they had boogie boards, and they didn't put that in the listing anywhere. But the joy I had as a parent, where I'm like, because it's Hawaii too, they would have been like $40 each to rent.
Yeah.
I was like, this is great. Like, it would have stood out if I'd seen that. So absolutely.
Yeah. So when you think about these unique experiences, it'll also help you take better photos for your property, because now you know the experience you want to highlight in those photos and sell. It's not just like real estate photos where you're taking a picture of the property. You're taking a picture of the experience. So styling it, displaying, like you said, the boogie boards, that would have definitely made you book that quicker because you know your kids are going to like that. You know it's going to save you money. Just stuff like that. It's just always easier to think about your property this way because it makes every design decision easy, especially like picking your cover photo. You know what you are highlighting. So
Absolutely. And I don't want to interrupt your flow, but I have to ask because I think one thing that I've seen across the board since the pandemic is workspaces. You know, like everyone's gone remote now and you can work anywhere you want. Like I look for a place where I can put a second monitor. Like I'll throw a second monitor in my travel bag. So I need to find a place that has like a big desk, a bigger desk. So how do you think about that? I saw you nodding. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
So that kind of brings me back to the highlighting unique spaces in your property. So if you do have like a random wall, a random like empty space, and you feel like, oh, something's missing, instead of throwing like a mirror on there, turn it into a work from home space. I had a client that had like a big bathroom and she had just a table with a lamp in the bathroom. And I was like, turn that into like a diaper changing station. You know, think about your ideal guest and really use these spaces. Mm-hmm. I know, you know, you may get tired and feel like I just want it, you know, furnished. I just want it done. But you're going to realize when it's too late that you should have done certain things in the property. So really use those empty spaces, empty walls, empty closets. Really use them for your ideal guest. Speaking about the work from home area, I'm trying to find, you know, somewhere to stay for my birthday. I wanted to just go away for a week, and I want my husband to come. And he works in tech, works from home. And one of the properties, they were kind of way over the budget, but they had 2 monitors already that came with the desk. And so it was kind of like, well, instead of you having to pack your monitors, you could just pack your laptop. And that was something that we're willing to pay more from. So really thinking about those work from home spaces, I think you can't go wrong with that. So if you have a wall, you don't know what to do, buy a desk, buy a chair, and there you go.
Yeah, I think a lot of times our clients are looking for like practical investments that are just gonna, you know, that they're gonna help ROI. So I mean, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. So thinking about your ideal guest, everything will be a practical investment.
Yeah.
But if you don't think about them and you're just like, oh, this is a cool mirror, this is a cool painting, that's not going to make you any money. So, I mean, you could throw that in there, but guests are not booking because you have a painting. They are booking because you set up your mirror so they can take really cool selfies and post on social media and tag your property. So think about it that way. And so really quickly, I'm just going to run through the last 3, which is I include everyone. That's a super easy thing to do, but a lot of hosts and investors forget that. So if you have a property that sits or sleeps 10 people, then your dining table has to sit 10 people. If it doesn't, what's going to happen is you get around those holiday seasons and you're going to find that you're not getting booked and you're not sure why, but it's because we all cannot enjoy Thanksgiving dinner around the table because you only have space for 6 people. So those small things can prevent bookings. It can look good. You know, you can have a beautiful dining table that sits 6, but if a guest of 10, 12, they're trying to book, they're not going to book that property, no matter how good it looks. So always think about everyone. Even in the living room, if you have a large group, but your living space won't fit that many people and you just throw in a futon, they're going to skip over it. So you want to be creative. I did a property where the living space, it was big enough, but we also had a bedroom. So what I did in that bedroom was turn it into like a den area. So because we don't fit all the people in the living room, we do have like a second living room where they can sit in. But at night, that living room turned into a bedroom. So we didn't lose the bedroom, but we were able to accommodate everybody. So including everyone in the experience is definitely going to help your listing get booked at the price that you're asking for because you're giving guests what they want. And L stands for landmarks. I know a lot of hosts and investors, they put in their title, close to the Grand Canyon, close to this. Good. Everybody is close. You know, your neighbor is close. The house next door is close. But what does your property offer that allows guests to enjoy that landmark? If you have a special view, let's say you can see the Hollywood sign from your property and you have a deck, furnish your deck so that guests can comfortably sit there and take in that view. They're not just close to the Hollywood sign, but they can actually enjoy the Hollywood sign, take selfies with the Hollywood sign. I don't know, record videos with the Hollywood sign. make those landmarks a part of your property. And that's how you stand out, because the other properties in your neighborhood are also next to that landmark. But what does your property do that makes that landmark important and that distance important? A good idea, if you don't have any space, any creativity, just reach out to a photographer and say, hey, I'm next to the Grand Canyon. Can you take my guests pictures when they book? And if he says yes, then you include that in your property. Free photos at the Grand Canyon, or free photos for an hour at the Grand Canyon. So now it's a unique experience. You know, they're booking a property close to the Grand Canyon and they know they're going to have a personal photographer. So things like that, just tie in the landmark to your property. And lastly, educate. A lot of hosts, you know, we feel like people are coming to your location. You feel like they've done their research, but some people just know they're coming to LA. They don't really know what they're going to do in LA. They don't really know what the days are going to entail, but they know they got their tickets and they know they're going to stay. So educate them and plan out their vacation. Create a guidebook that will highlight only the best brunch, only the best lunch, only the best dinners. So what will happen is when they come to your property, you've curated their vacation and they're going to leave you a raving review. They'll be like, oh, I loved staying here. Let me use an example of a business traveler. So business travelers, they know that they need to be close to the convention center, and that's about it. When they get there, they'll figure out where they're going to eat and everything like that. But if they book your property and they get there and they have a guidebook that has the breakfast, the lunch, the dinner, every day after a long seminar, they'll just look in the guidebook and then they'll go to this restaurant and it's all the best stuff. So at the end of their stay, their review will be like, this property was great. It was comfortable. It had everything I needed. It was close to the convention center. And you got to check out Ruby's Red Slipper. They have the best, blah, blah, blah. And so that kind of turns a basic property is good review to this property had a great experience. If you're also a business traveler, don't hesitate. Book it. You're going to enjoy it and you won't have anything to complain about. So doing all these things beforehand when you're designing your property, when you are done, I know it's a lot of work, but when you are done, it's going to be worth it because you don't have all the issues. You know, you don't have the guests that complain because these are people who are paying premium. Like they want that experience. You have the cleaners that don't want to do this because they feel proud to take pictures and post that they've cleaned it. The design makes it easy for the turnarounds. They know exactly where everything should go. It's something that the property managers, they feel proud to have this on their portfolio. Good design, intentional design makes you money and reduces the headaches and the stress. So you spend more time making bookings instead of making money and getting bookings instead of losing sleep.
Is there anything that kind of you'd say, hey, you guys need to stop doing this, or you need to definitely focus on that? We got the air fryer, but any other kind of tips in that area where you're like, guys, this is easy. You got to do these 3 things. Anything like that?
I think if I have one thing, which may probably remind me of other things, but one really important thing is to look at your budget. I know people don't like to use the word budget because they don't want to think about the money, but you have to think about the money. In this field, I tell my clients, I'm going to talk about money. So if you're uncomfortable, let's fix that. But think about your budget and think about the property you want to purchase. You don't want to be in a situation where you buy this big property because it's a good deal, but your budget is not going to allow you to design it in a way that you offer the right amount of value for those guests. So you don't want to just throw in a bunch of beds. You know, you want it to be a game room with really good design. You kind of need to know if you're able to do that. There's no cap. I know sometimes people want me to tell them like how much it will cost. For me, I have a cap because that's just the way I'm able to design it. I like to do like $5,000 for the bedrooms and $6,000 for common areas. So that's about the minimum I can create a really great design. But if you're very creative, you have a lot of DIY skills, and that number may look different from you. But it's really important to, before you even pull the trigger on the property, kind of plan that out or reach out to a designer and say, hey, this is how much I have to spend. Will I be able to provide the right amount of value? Will I be able to design it the right way? Because you don't want to just get a big property, your budget is little, you throw in a bunch of beds. That's how party houses happen. You didn't plan for it, but now you have guests that are just looking for the cheapest thing, which is what your property has become because you're having to slash rates to get bookings. So you really need to make sure your budget will provide enough value in the property that you are choosing. So very, very big and very important, because once you purchase that property, I mean, you're not going to rob a bank for more money. So you have what you have and you want it to work. So definitely thinking about that beforehand. Again, a lot of work. I know it's easier to just get a property and throw in furniture, or think that throwing in furniture will make you money, but that's not going to be the case. And I don't want you to be there, because it becomes a very frustrating place to be. You start not liking guests. You start thinking about them negatively. Like, oh, I'm not getting white sheets. Guests always get them dirty. Like, yeah, cost of business. They're using it. But you don't want to be in that space. You want to like your guests. You want your guests to be like, oh, thank you so much. I'm telling everybody about this property I'm going to book. That's the space you want to be in. And when you think about them, they'll think about you. Another mistake that I think can be easily avoided is TV placement. I know everyone feels TVs need to go above the fireplace. It doesn't have to go above the fireplace. But if it works in your space, then by all means do that. But you want your TV to be directly across from sofas. So I've seen lots of properties where they just know a TV needs to go in there, but they're not thinking about how are guests watching the TV. Am I looking at it this way, or is the bed facing this way and the TV's to the left? Like, they want to watch TV comfortably. So don't just throw in the TV. Wherever you place your TV, make sure your ideal guest can comfortably watch the TV. Mm-hmm. Because I may be super picky because I'm a designer for vacation rentals, but I do not even consider properties where the TV is not placed correctly, because I know when I'm traveling with my family, having a movie night is something that I really want to do. So I know you have a TV in there, but I know we can't comfortably watch it, or I know there's not enough chairs in the living room to watch it. So I don't even consider it. And it may look good, but it's just not functional. So like TV placement, very, very important. And that can help you get more bookings.
One thing for me, because just piggybacking off the comfortability factor, is I think that you should never cheap out on good sheets and a decent bed. In your opinion, your experience, what have you seen? Because I know that's, beds get expensive, but I kind of take it personally as well, right? Like, don't cheap out on the bed. You spend a lot of time there. Yeah. And you want to feel well rested. So yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Again, it just depends on so many factors, like your budget, your guest. But definitely having a comfortable bed is very important. But let's say your budget is not going to allow you to get the best top-notch mattresses in every room. What your budget can afford is a really good mattress. Get whatever mattress you want just to, get the ball rolling, and then get really good mattress toppers on top. And that's going to be a good bed to your guests. And then if you get more bookings, you can switch that out to the best bed on the market. But it's not really a deal breaker as long as it's not uncomfortable. So if you're stuck, get any mattress and get a really good memory foam mattress topper. If you need a suggestion, I have one that I buy for everybody because it's like some of the best sleep of my life. Every night, my husband lays down and he's like, and I'm like, we've had this topper for years, but like the experience every night, it's like he forgets. Like, it's really great. So don't underestimate the power of a good mattress topper. But definitely having a good bed is really important. And again, if you know your ideal guest values a good bed, like travel nurses, that's something to highlight in your captions or in your description. So just knowing who cares about it, that plays a role in it too.
I just wanted to say, kind of reiterate kind of key points that I'm going to weave into tax. I think with our clients, we are very intentional about budget and spend. I think that if you're learning now that buying an Airbnb is then going to require an investment in design or furniture, you're coming up on this pretty late, right? So like when we look at helping a client think about budget, and we've had guests on who like all they do is help investors find an area and property type. Like we're always very conscious that, look, you want to have enough budget left to really make the experience positive. And I think that's what, if there's a takeaway I'm getting, it's like, that's what Eric is saying is, hey, yes, budget is a tough conversation, but I would say for our audience, like it is absolutely black and white. You're not just buying a place and then you're completely broke. Even if you are, you're using a credit card.
Get broke.
A good broke. It happens all the time. I mean, I think like we have the benefit of following clients on their journey where, thing we hear all the time is like, hey, I'm cash. What is it? House rich, cash poor. Like that's part of the process of, hey, we saved all this money to buy a vacation rental. You got to pay 20% down when you buy these things if you're not buying it as a primary residence. So it takes a lot of cash, and you want to have a mechanism and be thoughtful about how you do that. And, I actually think the best debt you can get out there if you're going to set up a business or an LLC is a 0% credit card, because what you can do is you can set these things up. Yeah, you're going to rack it up, but you're going to make that money back. And that's the point, is you're investing in something that looks great, that's going to have good occupancy and a strong ADR, a strong nightly rate, where you make that back, and you're going to make priority number one, paying that credit card before the interest hits, right? So I just wanted to reiterate that, look, we don't have these conversations to say what's the cheapest way to create a party house. We're trying to create an experience where, I think you said it best, like we don't feel negative about our guests, right? I've gotten there when like things break, and I like nice stuff, but like, what happens if they use it? It's like, that's the cost of doing business. So I'm glad you said that. I just wanted to layer that in. And in terms of, like making sure all this gets a tax benefit, we're not going to talk about it today because we talk about it all the time, but that's why having a separate credit card for the business is so important. You got to have budget to do this stuff. And that's the point, right? You want to have budget to make a great experience and get a great nightly rate.
I think everything you've said is great. Also working with or having a streamlined process of how you are designing this property is also going to help with taxes. So that way you have a record of what things cost, and you're not just like, I'll get this bed, and then you go to the store, I'll get this nightstand. And that's how you go over budget, So planning everything out before you pull the trigger, which is how I design, is really great and really important, especially for taxes.
Well, let's talk a little bit how those listening would work with you, and share a little bit about how you work.
Okay, so if you are interested in working with me, you can always shoot me an email, visit my website. There's also a contact form you can fill out. You can schedule a consultation. And so during the consultation, what I do is take your space or your plans or whatever you provide for me, and I'll create a tailored plan for you of what we need to do to hit your nightly rate, who your ideal guests are. It's pretty much like a starting point. So you can take it and run with it, or most people take it and be like, can you make this a reality for me? And so that's what we'll do. So the consultation is just the first step. I do work virtually as well as full service. So full service, I will do the design, send those over, we'll place the orders, and pretty much it's hands off for you 100%. And you just show up and your property is nice and done. That is 4 weeks, sometimes 6 if I, spec something that's super important to your ROI, but it will take a little longer. But the whole process is usually 4 weeks. I do work by a flat fee structure. So because I work with investors, I have a pricing calculator on my website. If it's the middle of the night and you are considering a deal and your realtor is like, you have to pull the trigger now, then you can go on there, ericao.com/pricing, plug in the information, see how much it would cost to work with me, and then tell your realtor, like, you got a deal or you don't have a deal. But so that's on there. So you don't have to necessarily talk to me to know whether you want to or can work with me or not. I'm pretty streamlined. So if you are used to like lots of manual stuff, emails back and forth, Google Docs, that would not be the case with me. Everything is pretty organized. So I know you're probably going to be overwhelmed with other things, but the design process will not be one of those things. So that's kind of how you work with me. And if you aren't sure if you want to work with me, you just want to stay connected, I do post a lot of resources on Instagram at Erica OOH Designs. I have lots of guides on there, how-tos, reels, stuff like that. and my DMs are always open as well.
That's fantastic. And one last thing, because I think a lot of our clients maybe have already set up their Airbnbs. They're doing well. Maybe they want a facelift. I mean, how do you think about kind of redesign or improving design? Is that something that you work with, or is it just new setups?
Yes. So on my website, you can also schedule an audit. So on the audit, I will just identify areas that you can improve that may, you can make more money, or areas that are costing you money. And
Fantastic.
You can take that and see if you need to or want to start a new project, or just so you have a list of things that you can, go to every time you get some money to make a change. So you aren't just, painting an accent wall that doesn't bring ROI, but you are making the right changes, just knowing the right changes. So if you're at a point right now where you're not getting bookings or you're not getting the rates that you want, before you make any changes, I do have a post on my Instagram of right changes to make, and it lets you know based on the area what changes you should make in your living room, outdoor space, based on your goal. If you want to increase your nightly rate or get more bookings or get better content for your Instagram page, I have ideas on that. So if you want something specific, of course, you can reach out to me for an audit, but on there you can get, ideas.
Erica, I want to thank you for joining me today. And I want to thank you for listening. To make this actionable, I encourage you to write down 1 or 2 things that you heard today that you want to take away. If you found value in this conversation, make sure to subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, and stick around for the next conversation. What you learn might change your business.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Bottom Line. This podcast is brought to you by Centurion Firm, bringing you Fortune 500 tools and strategies to help small businesses and other organizations with tax, accounting, and technology implementation that maximize cash flow and long-term value. Learn more at centurionfirm.com.